That's a lot of damage!
Pantanil Tulian Mildanine, and thank you once again for joining me. My name is Lord Aramel, and today we will start with our overview, reactionary sort of video series on Critical Role. Now, with your suggestions, I will be going with the second campaign. I know that I wouldn't want anybody making any decisions about my DMing abilities based on my own first campaign, so we will definitely give the benefit of the doubt to that. Uh, Also, I will not be doing a live reaction video to any of the episodes. Oh, yeah. I took one look at the length of these episodes, which makes sense because they're supposed to be, D&D sessions. I don't know what I was expecting. But the first episode is 3.5 hours long, and I just am not going to subject you all to that because these reaction videos would have been like, okay, we watch for a segment with my face down in the corner or whatever, and then occasionally I would pause and talk about something, but that would mean taking a video which is already very long and either chopping it into what, half a dozen manageable sections, or just making an episode that's probably go on for about 5 hours, and nobody's going to sit through that. So, what's going to happen is I'm going to talk to you like this. I'm going to watch the video for however long it takes. I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to talk. And I'm going to include timestamps if you want to watch along, or if you want to go back and rewatch it. If something really exceptional happens, I might try to record a small clip of what's going on. Right here up front, if you haven't watched Campaign 2, The Mighty Nein, uh, spoiler warning, really, just, it's been out for 3 years. I've got it up on my second laptop here, so in case you're wondering why I'm switching back and forth. But it's been up for 3 years, so yeah, spoiler warning if you care about that, but I don't think you do because you're here. So, without further ado, let's muse. Alright, so right off the bat here. So I'm watching, I've got my Dr. Pepper, as usual, and I gotta say, within 10 seconds, I'm already enjoying this because it's just funny. Matt Mercer begins to, he just says, "Hello, everyone," and, is going to start into his, introductory paragraph, whatever, and is immediately cut off by one of the players laughing. And I feel that pain. I know that feeling. Um, he's got 7 players around this table at the moment, which is a daring move, I gotta say. And I believe it when they say that he's an experienced DM and he can do that. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to play with 7. I just know from personal experience that 7 is a lot of people to keep around the table. I look forward to seeing how this works out. Perhaps the most realistic part of this thus far is that it took them 13 minutes to get into even the introduction of the actual playing. I find that very funny and also highly just reflective of real life. As a matter of fact, we spend probably more than that every session before we actually even touch dice. So, yeah, it's fair. Okay, so we're at 18 minutes in. Matt's given a geography lesson, and one of the players says, "There will be no test on this." And as a interjection. There's a lot of info dump in any good campaign start, I think. This might be a lot. I think that if I was going to do this, I would definitely want to have a map ready to show the players. In this case, especially a rather large map, uh, physically large map, just so that everybody can crowd around and see it. But this is not unusual, and is an idea of an outside in kind of perspective for DMing. So you give them the big picture, and then you kind of zoom in to where the players are, uh, as opposed to the kind of inside out idea of okay, you are in a tavern in the city. Da 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 da. All right, let's see where you go from here.
Which, as Ronaldo sits down, clutching his hat still in his hand, says, "And I thank you for your time, Ford. And I apologize, I forget your names. Beauregard. Beauregard and
Jester.
Jester. Thank
Yes.
you.
Jester. I have heard so much about Jester. Holy shit. So this is interesting. I like how there's this slight twist on the traditional you meet in a tavern kind of vibe. I like how they have groups of the PCs being introduced. First it was the first two, and then now these three, and the last two I assume will be introduced pretty shortly here. Each of these groups seem to have at least a little bit of a backstory together, which is not impossible. It's I shouldn't say it's common, but I think it shows that the characters have uh, put in some work with the DM before the campaign gets really started. So it's not necessarily something like, oh, this is all obviously scripted. No, that it's a story, and whether it's scripted or not. And I've done this before myself, so this is pretty good. This is pretty interesting. Uh, what was there was oh yeah, voice acting. Now, of course, kind of the premise of this is that they're all voice actors in some degree or regard, which would be a nightmare for me because I tend to just imitate whatever I listen to, so I couldn't deal with this. But I gotta say that I have had a couple characters who did do voice acting for their characters, and it's really fun. It's very interesting, and it really helps to differentiate when they're talking in character and out of character. So if you can do a fun voice for your character, I'd suggest it. All right, so not the goblin is talking to Caleb, and they're talking about how the other characters have just gotten a bunch of money, and I assume not is he kind of well she character is a female goblin, I believe, is listing a bunch of different cons that they could run to get the money from the other PCs. And I really enjoy that because it reminds me of a campaign that I ran, no, that I was a part of, excuse me, where myself and one of my best friends we were in a similar situation. We were both kind of maybe not rogues, but had roguish backstories, and we had specified a couple heists. I think it was like I was like a gentleman rogue, and he was kind of like my assistant. But yeah, we had a few heists. So this is just like that warehouse job again, and so it's always fun when you have little in jokes or bits of backstory with another character. Okay, so I was actually starting to wonder when we would get the last two player characters introduced. 45 minutes into the episode seems a bit long for me personally. I would definitely have tried to introduce them earlier, but I understand that narrative pacing is a thing. Uh, so far I gotta say that the characters are very interesting. I don't think I've ever had two halflings in one campaign. Then again, I play 3.5 mainly, where tiefling is not a standard race. So there's that. Interesting though.
Perform.
I'm less of a performer and more of an intermediary for these parts. I do on occasion perform. I can read fortunes on occasion.
I was going to ask if you read fortunes. Can you do one now?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Oh my gosh, you're so smart.
That's what they told
Look
me.
at this guy. He knows everything.
That's funny. Yeah. Now he actually gives a fortune, and I don't think I've ever had any of my characters do fortune telling, which is kind of surprising. Actually, now that I think about it. But that would be a very interesting gimmick for a character, especially if you have like a tarot deck or something of the like. You could actually get some very interesting roleplay opportunities. Don't shy away from small and interesting props, alright? Especially when they serve a larger narrative. So, one of the things that I'm noticing also, especially while they're talking about the academy, and I have no idea more or less about what the academy is other than it's some sort of wizard school. Now, it's interesting though because they are talking about it without any prompting from the DM, which leads me to believe that the characters, the characters also, but mainly the players are familiar enough with the campaign setting that they can talk about these things, as one does, or as one would in real life, big quotation marks. And that's not common, from what I understand, from my own experiences, at least. So either you'd have a player who's making it up off the fly. Trucks going past, sorry. Or occasionally, if you're playing in an established campaign setting like Eberron or Forgotten Realms or what have you, a player might be more familiar with the setting enough to actually talk about some of these things, but personally, I find that it's really nice when it happens, but it's very rare in my own experience. So, is that a point towards it being scripted? Kinda, but you could also, since this is the first episode, a lot of this could be just, pre-session planning. And that happens a lot of times when it's especially a story-driven campaign, you'll get a lot of talking with the players, between the players and the DM, just kind of fleshing out backstories and whatnot. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Good idea. Also, I don't think I've heard the word trust used before. And I actually looked it up, and it means something like comfort. So I don't know if that's an actual term for booze, or if they kind of made it up. It's interesting. Okay, so there's this bit about Jester messing around in a bookstore. This has nothing to do with the DM musing, but just listening to somebody talk about moving books around and flipping them so that the wrong side is facing outward. Oh, I was raised by librarians, so that damn near gave me a heart attack. All right, so we just announced the break. So we're at an hour and a half in of 3.5 hours. So I figured this is a good point for me to talk about, what I've seen thus far, really. Probably put aside my popcorn. It's one thing I really enjoy about jump cuts. Finished my Dr. Pepper before they were done with the introductions, but whatever. So, what are some things that I noticed? Well, first off, I really like some of Matt Mercer's, not just the dialogue, but how he sets the scene. I gotta say that's really well done. I assume that what he just did, which was a very long set piece, as it were, excuse me, wasn't off the cuff. It was definitely, prepared, probably written down, and that's fine. And that's perfectly good. I've done very similar things myself when I DM, and actually preparing something similar for my Monday campaign anyway. So, yeah, that's not anything out of the ordinary. It is interesting to watch him juggle the 7 characters, 7 players, especially. I think that is something that I would try not to do as a DM, especially because at the moment, 2 of the players have only had maybe 5 to 10 minutes of screen time, big quotation marks. So I don't know. It's I'm sure that, they'll balance out later on, but if you're going to be a DM, especially for your first few times, try to keep it within a range of 4 to 6 characters. That's my big suggestion. That has very little to do with Critical Role. Let's see. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be as scripted as I thought. Maybe prepared. Maybe this isn't the first actual session. It feels like they all had mini sessions beforehand. Maybe let's see, the 2 that were first introduced, Not and Caleb. So maybe Matt, had an hour-long session with them, or a couple days earlier they had a session with the other 3, or the other 2. Just enough to keep people, or to get people into character, and also to give them a bit of shared backstory. At the moment, it does seem like they have had kind of a preparatory session. It is enjoyable. It's definitely enjoyable. Even if you don't think that this is real D&D, I think that a DM could probably watch this and get a couple ideas. Matt Mercer is beautiful at describing, so points for that. I'm going to withhold judgment, my final judgment, for after the first session at the very least, and hopefully after I want to get maybe at least 3 episodes in, which will probably end up being 6 short videos. Well, I say short, but we're already close to 20 minutes. So, those are my main thoughts. Let's see here. Yeah, I either way, it's enjoyable. It's good TV, I should, or good programming, I guess. Can't call it good TV when it's on YouTube. So yeah, that's those are my thoughts thus far. So leave your comments down below. I know we're really just scratching the very tip of the iceberg, as it were, but I do want to get your thoughts on this. If this format works for you, let me know. If you think that I should just watch it straight up and take notes while I watch it, and then give like a full account afterwards. That is also a fair idea. I'm gonna try. If you think that this format works well, I'm gonna try and work on the transitions between scenes better, but we'll get to that. Thank you for joining me, and until we meet again, dear friends, Antonio Tulian Mildanin, and farewell.